This class will be concerned with sales strategy and setting sales objectives. We'll start with sales strategies. Now, sales strategies are techniques that are used by marketing departments and by sales departments, and the idea of using these techniques is to try to generate sales for the business. It's important that the business has sales and has a sales revenue, otherwise the business would not exist. So it's important to develop the market and to try and get the market to grow, to sell more products and services over time, so as to enable the business to grow and to prosper. Now, the sales team can use a range of selling strategies to try and generate market growth. It could use different promotion techniques, for example, or advertising, or customer relations management, contacting customers and building up relationships with the customers about the product, and having sales drives. And there are many techniques that may be used in order to try and promote the product in the market, and thereby, of course, promote the business. Setting sales objectives are important, and strategies can be derived from the objectives. So once the objective is set, the objective is to grow the market, to sell more over a period of time, then the strategy will follow. How should that objective be met? What is the most appropriate strategy to have more salespeople on the ground, more salespeople in the field dealing with customers, or is it to have more above the line marketing in the press, on television, or whatever? It depends on the product, it depends on the price of the product, it depends on the market and the characteristics of the market. But the strategies have to be determined once the sales objective has been set. So the first point is setting the objectives. What are the sales objectives? So there are corporate objectives. These are the widest possible set of objectives that must be met. And the corporate objectives will be met by corporate strategy, needless to say. So the business has corporate objectives of growing by X% in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years or whatever it is. And they will pick strategies to deal with that. For example, more marketing personnel, product innovation, research and development, or whatever it is. And then we've got marketing objectives which flow from the corporate strategy. So the marketing objectives will be trying to live out or achieve the strategy. The strategy is to engage in more marketing in a certain area, and the marketing objectives will put meat to that. It will say, well, the company must grow by X% in that area, or it must grow by Y% in a different area, whatever. So the marketing objectives, again, are derived from the corporate strategy. And of course, having got market objectives, there will be market strategy. The market strategy is to employ more people in the field, as I said earlier, to have more advertising or more promotions, or it depends on the product. As I said earlier, it depends on the nature of the product. If the product is a large capital piece of equipment, then advertising it in glossy magazines may not be the answer, or advertising it on television may not be the answer. It may be promoting it in trade shows or promoting it directly to the customers. So it depends on the nature of the product. But the marketing strategy should come from the objectives, the marketing objectives, which of course comes from the corporate strategy, which comes from the corporate objectives. And the marketing strategy, of course, will have the detailed sales objectives. Perhaps the sales objectives will be broken down by area, or broken down by customer, or broken down by characteristics in the market in some way. So there will be sales objectives and a sales strategy. How will different parts of the market be approached? The market may be segmented. The market may be males and females, or people over 65, under 65, under 50, under 30, or whatever it is. So there will be a sales strategy aimed at these particular segments, and that will feed into the sales objective to try and meet the overall objectives, which tries to meet the marketing strategy, fits in with the marketing strategy, I should say, which meets the marketing objective, which of course is derived from the corporate strategy, which meets the corporate objective. So we can see the evolution of the sales strategy. It comes all the way from the top of the organization. Now, setting the objectives. Well, objectives are set at various levels in the organization, and as you've seen from the previous slide, they cascade throughout the organization. They have a common theme coming all the way back from corporate objectives. The corporate objectives being to grow the business, let's say, or to consolidate the business, or to enter a new market, or whatever it was. So you could see how it cascades down to the detailed sales plan for a particular area, for a particular set of customers. Corporate objectives are the ultimate goals and objectives set by the business. So the corporate objectives is what the business is trying to do overall. And all the other objectives, such as functional objectives, are derived in order to meet the corporate, are derived, I should say, to meet the corporate objective. So the corporate objective is what the business is trying to do. That's the big long-term ambition of the business. Everything else feeds into that to try and help to achieve it. Functional objectives are set by departments such as marketing and finance, production and human resources. So each of the departments in the business will have their own objectives, but these objectives contribute towards the overall achievement of the corporate objective, which is what the business is trying to achieve overall. So the marketing section will have objectives, it'll have strategies, the finance will have objectives, the production people will have objectives, and so on. But it all aims at achieving the corporate objective. So setting the objectives, well, we have corporate objectives, and then we've got the various functional departments. I've just listed 4 here, there might be many more, depends. But we have the various functional areas, and these functional areas are contributing towards the corporate objective. Marketing objectives, for example, could be to increase revenue, or to increase market share, or to increase market growth. So it's contributing in trying to achieve this objective, it's contributing towards the corporate objective. And marketing will have, well, here I've got the 4 P's: product, place, price, promotion. There may be more than 4 P's. There may be other areas that the marketing people want to look into. Particular types of marketing in particular circumstances. Depends on the product, depends on the nature of the market. But we can see from the diagram that everything is feeding back to the corporate objectives. That's the point. Now, so there are objectives for each element of the mix, and the objectives include customer awareness, increased sales volume, and customer satisfaction. And the upshot of all of this are sales. I've actually just listed sales here against promotion, but in fact all of the elements of the marketing mix contribute towards greater sales or greater impact in the market. And the important point is, going back upwards on the diagram, it all feeds back up through the various elements of the marketing mix, up into marketing and back into the corporate objective, which is trying to be achieved. Now, sales objective and sales strategies. Well, the marketing department or marketing departments are responsible for setting sales objectives, and from the objectives, sales strategies are derived. So the marketing department sets the sales objectives, and from the objectives, the sales strategies are derived. So we start with the objectives. What are we trying to do? What's the marketing department trying to achieve? What are the objectives? Having a clear picture of what the objectives are, it then derives strategies to try to achieve those objectives. Sales strategies are planned approaches that are developed to meet marketing objectives, and of course thereby help to achieve the corporate objectives. So sales strategies are detailed strategies relating to the market, relating to how the product is positioned in the market, and relating to the marketing mix as applied to the product. And it's a very detailed, perhaps, approach to looking at the market. It's looking at all aspects of the market. And it fits in with the sales strategy. The sales strategy is to go into the market and capture the market by dealing with changes in price or having promotions, or go into the market looking at customer relations and trying to build up a knowledge of the customers and build up relationships and promote the image of the product, whatever it is. So there are strategies there, but the strategies ultimately feed back to the achievement of the corporate objective, like I've said many times earlier. Strategies must be developed in line with corporate objectives. Of course, needless to say, everyone should be pulling in the same direction. So the marketing department should be working in a way that enables them to fulfill or help to contribute towards the achievement of the corporate objectives. The corporate objectives being what the business is trying to achieve. So all of the functional areas should be pulling towards the achievement of the corporate objective. Otherwise, there will be inefficiencies, mismatches, conflict, and it will not be a very harmonious business. The sales objective and sales strategies. Well, sales strategies involve improved customer loyalty. That's always a good sales strategy. Expand and increase market share through product modification and gain competitive advantage. Modifying the product in line with customer needs is always a good idea. It means knowing what the customer needs are, so there has to be some market research, some feedback from the market, from the customers, about what they would like to see in the product in terms of its design, its functionality, its reliability, or whatever. So trying to meet that is always a good idea, because that enables more sales to take place. And increasing customer awareness about the product. Just having events in trade shows, or having events in stores, or advertising the product on television. It's expensive, but it may get the name across. It may make customers aware that the product exists. And try to approach new customers and attract new customers. So it may need marketing and salespeople in the field who will make direct contact with customer groups to try and make them aware of the product, its quality, its attributes, and its desirability. And try to expand into new markets. That's how growth is most easily facilitated. Growing existing markets may be difficult. People have enough of the product. And new sales will be perhaps just marginal, just on top of what already exists. But entering a new market, that may be very lucrative, because the people there will be first-time buyers, perhaps, and there will be more opportunities for sales. Continued emphasis on sales growth is important because the sales team know what the objective is. They know that they need to continue to grow. So there's no complacency in the team. There's no complacency within the organization. And there is an emphasis on growth. And that as a sales strategy enables the business to move forward because the sales team know what the overarching requirement is to have extra sales, more sales. But it's important also to have customer satisfaction ratings to try and get feedback from the customers about how the product fares, how the product meets their requirements, and addressing any shortfalls. Making the customers feel part, perhaps, of the experience. They have bought a product, they're experiencing the product, and make them feel that they're not alone, that the organisation is still somewhere to be spoken to, communicated with, and if there are issues, there's good backup support, after sales service support perhaps, that can help them with the product. Now the types of selling objectives, well, they can be grouped under two categories: quantitative selling objectives and qualitative sales objective. Of course, when we see the word quantitative, it always conjures up the possibility of a qualitative. And here we've got both sides again. Start with the qualitative sales objective. Qualitative sales objectives are long-term objectives set by the marketing department, and they contribute to the overall marketing effort. They're set by the marketing department. They're almost by definition, they're not quantified. They are aspirational. It's what the department want to see happen in the long run, in the medium term, and even in the short term. So they revolve around management expectations, and the management expectations, of course, are based from experiences on personal selling and how these objectives will impact the corporate objectives. So it's management's expectations about what's happening in the market and how that will affect corporate objectives. So the selling objectives are being looked at by the management to see if the targets set are realistic, if the targets meet the corporate objectives, if they're too ambitious or not ambitious enough, or they're trying to get a fix on what they should be doing. Qualitative objectives do not change. They stay the same from one promotional period to the next. So once qualitative objectives have been set out, once the policy has been worked out, the management think they need to grow by 5% a year for the next 5 years or whatever it is. If that's what the management say, then they'll leave that. Just leave it and then try to achieve it and look to other aspects of marketing and sales to see if they can now achieve that target. So what can be tweaked further down? The overarching policy, let's say 5% growth over the next 5 years, that's been set. So leave it. And that was derived qualitatively by people discussing it and thinking that's what they really need if they're going to meet their corporate objectives. Qualitative selling objectives, well, these are take control over the entire selling role. It's much more interventionist. It's looking at the impact of different parts of the promotional mix, looking at the impact of changing prices or increasing direct marketing or after sales, or looking at some aspect, and it's trying to work out the impact of changes in terms of overall performance. And it could be trying to do that statistically. It could be trying to do it with numbers. But it's also trying to maintain customer accounts, keep in contact with customers and pick up hard information about the customers. So it's trying to deal with the the customers directly. And it's searching for new customers. It may be using a variety of techniques, some sort of demographic analysis to try and identify customers. It may be just sitting around thinking about where the new customers are. It might be a hunch based on the experience of some members of the team who thinks that there are some parts of the market that could be looked at in more detail, or that sort of thing. There certainly is a need to make sure that customers are up to date on product information, trying to pass out the information to customers and trying, if possible, to make direct contact with the customer so the customer feels that they are being valued and respected and they're a part of the process. So the qualitative selling objectives, well, to support and assist customers if products require technical support. It could be quantitative, it could be something that's measured, how much customer support is there per customer, or it could be qualitative, it could just say, let's have that facility to be able to contact customers and deal with any issues, and it's not quantified. So it can go either way, really. Liaise with intermediaries in the selling process and resolve any issues. Deal with any intermediaries, warehouses or people who sell on the product or bulk buy the product and break the stock, or importers or exporters or whoever, and deal with those people directly and resolve any issues. And conduct research and engage in some process of picking up customer feedback, have surveys, and try to work out what the customers want and what their experiences are, and working out any mismatch between what happens and what the customer's expectations were. The key for setting qualitative selling objectives is influenced by sales policy, quality standards and selling strategies. So when setting sales objectives, certainly qualitatively in this case, looking at sales policies, what are the sales policy of the business? How much emphasis does the business place on sales? How much emphasis is it placed on having a marketing department, and what is the philosophy behind the marketing department? What's the marketing department's role? How does it go about its job? What are the quality standards for the product, and how are those communicated? Quality objectives determine the scale at which personal selling operates and the emphasis on personal selling has on the promotion mix. So qualitative objectives can determine the scale. If a company's mass producing something, there's more chance of quality issues. If it's producing a one-off product, the chances are the product will be as per specification. The company will ensure that it's making a very specialist product and it meets the specification. But if it's making many and it sets up production systems to manufacture on a large scale in a repetitive sense, there may be some statistical variation and some quality issues arising out of that. So qualitative objectives help devise the quantitative objectives. The quantitative objectives tend to be short term, but I think in this type of discussion it's important to not be too rigid in separating out qualitative and quantitative. There is a big overlap. The quantity sold of a product is a function of its quality, and its quality is assessed by the customer in the buying decision. So there are elements of subjective behavior on the part of the customer to buy or not to buy based on quality assessment. That's subjective. The fact that it's bought or sold becomes statistical, and there's an overlap here. Quantitative objectives. Well, these are more short term, and they change in order to keep in line with corporate objectives. Quantitative objectives are to increase sales, as I said much earlier, say by 5% over the next 5 years, or by X% over the next Y years, or whatever. It's quantitative. How those figures come about could be viewed as something more qualitative. The figures may be plucked from the air by management. They may be aspirational. But once the figures are in place, they are figures, and therefore they're quantitative. So they may focus on sales and the volume of output, and why these objectives change when modifications are made to the promotional program. So if the company's selling a certain amount at the moment and then changes its price, so the quantity sold changes, there is perhaps a statistical relationship there. It may help guide decision making in the future. The company increased the price, less was sold. How many less? So the price went up by 10%, the quantity demanded fell by 15% or whatever. There may be an issue there. That's quantitative. All other quantitative objectives are derived from sales volume objectives. So the sales volume objective is key to the organization and how the organization looks at all its other figures. Production, employment, everything is based on the sales volume figure and sales revenue, the ability of the business to pay for its costs. So it's a critical figure. The process of setting quantitative objectives require planning and analysis. It's important that the management set out clear objectives right at the start. Clear quantitative figures, perhaps, which will guide the business. If it says it wants to grow by 5% over the next 5 years, why 5%? Why not 4.5%? Why not 7%? Why 5 years? Why not 3 years? Why not 6 years? Be clear. Talk about the underlying assumptions and make it clear to everyone involved. The following are typical quantitative objectives. Could be to retain the market share. Look at the market share. Say the company already has 10% of the market. Maintain it. If it falls to 9%, that's quantitative. It's a quantitative figure, but it should trigger off some discussion. Increase sales volume of profitable products. Grow new customers and new accounts. Expand the customer base. Reduce personal selling expenses. That's quantitative. Work out how much is it to sell the product. Perhaps what's the selling cost per item sold, and monitor that figure. So setting the quantitative objectives. Well, this requires planning and analysis, and the following factors could be considered. Look at market and sales potential. So when setting the objectives, it's important to look at the market and the sales potential. It's silly to say the company should grow by 5% over the next 5 years if the market is already saturated. If the market is already full, if it's a mature product ending its life cycle almost. So why set something which is clearly not achievable? So common sense must apply. Look at the sales forecast to see if the sales forecast suggests there is growth left in the market. And identify the market clearly. It may be the case that the wrong segment has been targeted, or there are opportunities in other segments that hitherto were not considered. Perhaps the product with modifications could be applied in other areas of the market. And look at the motivation of the customers to buy the product. What are the trends in society? What are the fashions? What do customers want? And is the product meeting those requirements? Market and sales potential. Well, market potential indicates the opportunity for sales. That's what we mean by market potential. It's the opportunity for sales. Sales potential identifies sales opportunities. So, is there potential for sales within the market? Are there parts of the market not catered for at the moment that the product could fill the requirements of the market? Perhaps a part of the market that's currently not being addressed. That's market opportunity. So, is it possible to tweak the product perhaps so it meets some gaps in the market as currently configured? Market potential is the analysis of industry attractiveness. The market potential is only there if the industry has got a product that suits the market. Otherwise, the potential will simply remain and there's nothing the company can do about it. It must have a product that meets the market requirements. So market potential is linked to the attractiveness of the product, the attractiveness of the industry indeed. The potential for a market indicates the possible sales opportunities. So the potential of the market is the opportunities that are there. That's potential. Potential and opportunities are linked. Sales potential analyzes possible future sales opportunities. So sales potential, and looking at the idea of sales potential, is linked to sales opportunities. If there are sales potential, then there are sales opportunities. And information can be gathered based on this analysis of sales potential. Information can be gathered which can help the business to tweak the product, to redesign the product, to innovate the product so it meets more fully the requirements of that sector of the market, of that segment of the market. So the sales opportunities are linked to the sales potential. Sales forecasts are important because they indicate what the potential is or what the potential could be. It looks at the possible future sales, and of course that's fed into the marketing plan. So accurate sales forecasts are important. Accurate sales forecasts may be somewhat imprecise because it's based on statistical techniques. It may be based on survey techniques, or it may be based on participant observation or on focus groups. So sales forecast has to be based on something. So it may be subject to error, but it may be also the case that some information is better than none. So subject to what I just said about there being errors, the business can make some sort of planning for the future. It may be based on a single product or a range of products sold by the business. So sales forecasts may be a single product, or maybe if it's a range of products, it's really looking at the reputation of the business. The business sells many products. What do the customers think of those products? And by, in a sense, aggregation, We're talking about what the customers think of the business. But forecasts tend to be short-term. People do change, and they change very rapidly. Fashions and trends in society change, and so forecasts tend to be short-term. Information gathered for sales forecasting is useful for sales executives in making sales strategies. Subject to what I said earlier about errors in the collection of data and in the analysis of data. And statisticians are only too aware of the shortcomings of their own techniques and are constantly warning people who use the techniques about the shortcomings. But that's all the business community has got. We can't see the future, and to get some insight into the market and the people in the market and what they think, those techniques are used. But they're not a very precise set of techniques. Market identification. Well, market potential requires researching the market before sales objectives can be set. It's important to identify the market. It's important to understand which market the company is selling into. Otherwise, its efforts are going to be dissipated. Its efforts are going to be across the whole market. It's going to be a waste. It's going to attempt to sell the product to customers who are clearly not interested. So it's important to identify who is interested, who are the customers. So we start with the simple question, who are the customers? And look at the customer groups and segments. It could be geographic, where do people live? It could be based on ethnic origin. It could be based on history. It could be based on cultural values. It could be based on economics. What can people afford? Who are the buyers and users of the product? Who are likely to use the product in the future? The information can be gathered from internal records and sale trends, and also from external sources such as field research and observations, as I said earlier. Market motivation. Well, market potential relies on customer motivation for buying products and services offered by the company. So market potential relies on customer motivation. Customer motivation is what generates the potential. Customer motivation is what the company is targeting. They need to identify customer motivation in order to make the sales. Market motivation looks into factors that encourage sales and answers questions such as why customers buy the product. So market motivation is trying to determine the underlying factors that generate the sales. And it's important that the company has some sort of analysis and some sort of understanding of what drives motivations in the market if it's going to achieve sales targets that are set. And of course the sales targets are realistically set in line with those motivations. So it helps understand the product market potential and the effectiveness of promotional techniques, the effectiveness of sales presentations and different selling appeals. So market motivation is an important area of investigation for the business. It's important for it to understand what drives the sales, what motivates the customers, what promotional techniques are acceptable to the customers, what promotional techniques are most effective, and also in how to approach the customer and the mix between after-sales service, direct contact, above-the-line marketing in the form of advertising in the press or on radio or television or on the internet, or what techniques are most effective. And it's a question of trying to identify that set which will determine the effectiveness of sales overall. There's one of the books that I've relied heavily on in deriving this session, and that's all I'm going to do in this session. So I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.